Yeah, so the audio is recording. Well, don't really know what to say. My buzz cut has gone to an awkward length right now where it's kind of long but not long enough to cut, so it feels a bit strange, but those are the consequences of getting a buzz cut on a whim. But yeah, here I am. I haven't made one of these in over a month, nearly 2 months now. It's crazy. I don't really know where to start, so I'm going to start with my opening quote. Anyway, welcome to what is episode 8 of season 2 of the Decompression Chamber. I'm your host, Mario. It's good to have you. It's good to be back. And our opening quote is going to be from Joseph Campbell. The quote goes, "We must be willing to let go of the life we planned so as to have the life that is waiting for us." Roll the intro.
Wanted to meet and my steamer is broke. Fuck the oblique turn peak of the soul. Peace never know what's about to occur, my zen getting rolled at a turn of your words. Wanted to meet and my steamer is broke. Fuck the oblique turn peak of the soul. Peace never know what's about to occur, my zen getting rolled at some little words.
Yeah, so a lot to catch up on. It's been a very eventful, hectic month and a half for me. I can't lie. Honestly, I don't know where to start. There's so much to recount on. Returning from uni was a blast. I kind of felt like the last couple weeks before coming back to uni felt like a drag to me. A lot of the friends from back home went off to uni before me, and I guess seeing them go through that process made me more excited and more wanting to do that myself. And so when I did, it was amazing. It was really good to be back, seeing people I hadn't seen in a while, and being back in an environment that I feel like I thrive in. But, you know, just like anything, it has its ups and its downs. And so straight away they throw us into the deep end with a 16mm drama project. So the process is that everybody has to pitch ideas to the lecturers, and the lecturers will just pick ideas and those get made into films. And so going into this pitch, they specifically told us the people whose films were selected to be made, or the people who had the idea for it, they wouldn't direct. I think it was an idea about people getting too emotionally attached to their ideas and that affecting the way they control the production. And so I pitched an idea that it wasn't like I came up with it on a whim, but it was a very small seed of an idea that I kind of tried to water a few days before the pitch, and it had a significant hole in it, story-wise, and the way that one of my lecturers decided to fix that or amend that was to make it a romance story. And I thought, yeah, that works. But I didn't think much of it, I wasn't too invested. And then that afternoon, it is revealed to us that the people whose films did get selected are going to direct, according to the lecturers. They tried to put that as affirmatively as possible, and one of the films that got selected was mine. The film's called Equinox. We've shot it now. It's wrapped as of last Thursday. But it was a crazy process from start to finish. I mean, I can still remember the exact place in the lecture theatre that I was in when they told us, or it's even said that each film was selected that it was. And I think in my head I found the idea of directing appealing, though I actually wanted to do first AD more. First AD, for context of those who aren't as well in the loop, the director is the person who is the chief of all the creative decisions. All of the framing and the camera stuff is led by the director of photography, but they do that to the director's aim, like to meet the vision that the director wants. The director is the person who pretty much just gets to decide how things will look, how things will be in the film. But first AD is a bit more of a logistical role, So there's about 4 or 5 weeks of pre-production, and even during production, the first AD is all about scheduling and making sure each department is working together, and kind of the way that I would describe it is that the director is in charge of the art, and the first AD, first assistant director, is in charge of the machine. And this only is very as true as I say that is for a small scale production like ours, which was an 8-person crew. But yeah, so they told us that the films were selected were going to be made into films shot on 16mm Panavision cameras, which, you know, to us film students is pretty cool. And I saw it as a great opportunity, but immediately when I found out that this was the case, that I'd be directing the first project of the year, I was like, yeah, I was intimidated. I can't lie. It was scary. It was unnerving because I kind of just pitched an idea as a throwaway, not as a throwaway necessarily, but like it wasn't something that I'd been building up for months or anything. And then yeah, not only that, I had to adapt it, or not adapt it, but use the amendment of it being a romance story and kind of build that into the story that I'd already created. And safe to say that's not really something I'm not the best of writers in general, but I don't really write any romance anyway, so like that was a real difficult process for me. Spent like a whole weekend pretty much just like glued to my laptop, and even then that was just for the first draft, you know. It took multiple redrafts and edits and changing certain parts and improving certain parts, and yeah, it was a pretty cool process, but I guess it was just difficult because a lot of the time when it's an idea that you've come up with, you feel attached to it, you know. So when people just start chopping and changing and say you don't need this and this doesn't work, it's hard not to take it as a personal affront, you know, naturally. But that kind of went through its process. I got into contact with actresses for the roles, which, you know, it was intimidating. Putting up stuff on the internet and ads and watching sorry about that. Watching people's video reels and then asking for not in person, for like audition tapes wasn't that bad, but when it came to actually like meeting people on Zoom and like speaking to them and like talking to them about the role and stuff, it was way out of my wheelhouse, way out of my comfort zone, and I felt extremely anxious and stressed before each of those phone calls, and because people who are in the business of acting are very empathetic and very like easy to get along with, it's kind of part of the whole ordeal. They ended up being very pleasant and very constructive conversations, but I guess things that I'm not as comfortable with or things that I'm not as experienced with are bound to give me more anxiety. And I mean, I won't get into the weeds of it, but the process of getting locations for the film was not the way I'd like it to be. Pretty much, we ended up getting all the locations that we needed. I think the locations worked out great, but they were all done so close to the production time that it just put me under an enormous amount of stress, because, as I mentioned before, the director's in charge of the art, but they're not as in charge of the machine. They don't push for things to get moving in certain senses, and at least they shouldn't do. And when it doesn't look like it's coming together that neatly, then you feel responsible, because at the end of the day, you're going to be one of the ones at the top of the credits, you know. And not just that, as well as that, because of the way the course is run and because lots of people want to direct projects, this is kind of it for me in terms of this year's projects as directing opportunities go. It wouldn't really be fair for me to rock up to the next project and go, yeah, I'm going to direct again, because there are other people who want that opportunity, and there are people who more importantly deserve that opportunity. And so this was I knew this was it for me. I knew that it's likely that I won't direct again, maybe to the end of the year, and certainly not likely within the projects that I'm doing for the course this year. And that just is what it is. I feel grateful that out of all the projects I could direct, it'd be on film and it'd be a drama, and the production process was, being on set and stuff, was really fun and really rewarding. But I don't know, I guess it's just made me think about what I want to do in the future. Like that time before the film where, for example, an actress for the secondary role pulled out of the film, and at the time it felt like my whole world was crumbling around me, when in reality, you know, these things happen in production. There's always unforeseen complications, and part of filmmaking is the problem-solving aspect of it. That's just kind of how the cookie crumbles. You just have to deal with it and put your trousers on and get to work when it's necessary. And yeah, so kind of just the weekend before, really, things started to come together. It kind of felt like, yeah, this is happening. And for context as well, I worked on another film as like a technical role, just as a crew role. There was barely any pre-production for me. I just kind of had to show up and help out with bits and bobs. But this kind of meant we were divided in our attention and not altogether screwed in at times. But something that I can speak really highly of was the crew that I worked with. We really developed a good sense of how to work together. Naturally, there are moments on set where people get stressed and tensions are high, and there's a lot riding for a lot of people in different situations, and everybody's under time pressure. And yet, even then, the people that I worked with, we all had generally good spirits, treated each other nicely, and had good attitudes to how we were, engaging with our work. And at the end of the day, the reason why I picked this course, the reason why we picked this course is for those opportunities, for those kind of days, long days where you wake up and you take a bunch of equipment off a van into a random part of a forest and you fucking make a film, Naturally, there's things that you remember more fondly than others, and there are things that you have to deal with that you wouldn't originally want to, but at the end of the day, problem solving, compromises, it's all part of the business. And I speak from an extremely low level of experience when it comes to that kind of stuff, but even then, you see it early in. If you think that it's going to be easy work or that there aren't going to be complications, you're just mistaken. Everything is going to feel like a mess at some point, and if you're lucky, it will just kind of come together. And if you work hard, then it's more likely to. And so yeah, we eventually got shit done and made 2 films in the space of 2 weeks. It was pretty crazy, and it took up so much of my mental space, so much of like what I thought about that. There's a reason I haven't made one of these, and it's not like I haven't had the ability to just put my camera up and plug my microphone in and just kind of get going with it. But it's more so about the fact that I guess for me it's kind of hard to speak my mind when I've got my mind on other things, and now I've got a sense of mental clarity that I don't feel like I've had for, I'd say, a month. It's affected the way I've interacted with people outside of uni. My friends from back at home, even my family, I didn't speak to them as much as I nearly should have, just because I don't know, I had like this tunnel vision. It felt like I was in a bubble. And maybe that's from lack of experience, and with time I'll be able to kind of not get too stressed about it. But I think I was very aware and keyed in about how lucky I was to be directing such a project, and that it might not happen in the same circumstances again. If I'm lucky, I might direct something on fucking 60mm Panavision camera or whatever soon. But if I were to want to be a director, then I might not get that opportunity for another decade. It's just the reality of the situation. There are steps in the ladder to climb. And something that I thought about a lot during the process was that I would often ask myself, and even like consult others in this, is I'd say, could I take this stress if I didn't want it? Because it was stressful, and there were times where I like broke down because of it, because I felt like there was so much pressure, not necessarily on me, but on the whole thing to go well. And I think the only reason why it kind of got to me that much was because I was invested, because I cared, because I wanted it to go well. And that led me to believe that maybe there's something to be said there about what I want to do in the future. The more I think about why I picked this course and why I got into the idea of making films, is that as much as I appreciate the technical and like logistical side of things, those are a huge and important part of it. I think when you really boil it down, for me, it's about the message you're saying, the story you're telling, and I guess maybe that indicates that the kind of path that I need to take in the future is in that realm. It's not just about how the thing is made, but what thing is being made, I guess that is what it is. And I spent so much time and mental energy that when it ended and it kind of like things relaxed and everybody was just kind of taking time to themselves, it was just like a huge emotional come down for me, where it just kind of felt like I just felt empty afterwards. I was just like, what do I do now? And how do I structure my life now that I'm not just like 100% of the time thinking about this? And maybe that's something I need to get better at as well. I just think maybe it was a combination of things, that the lack of rest and kind of mental strain, the 2 weeks of filming back to back, and a couple of other things that might warrant a separate episode. They just kind of caught up to me, I guess, and I think I made an analogy to a friend earlier. Shout out Harvey, I know he'll be watching, but I made an analogy saying that sometimes when I fail to deal with things, I feel like a caveman, like emotionally like a caveman. Like the only thing that I have is a hammer and a rock, and when my problem can't be solved with a hammer and a rock, I don't know what to do. I just sit there and I'm just like, I flounder and I spiral and it gets worse. And for a while I've been not searching, I guess, but just thinking about how I could gain more tools, and that's something I'll have to work on personally. But I think I've done a more or less job of catching you up, catching me up, kind of bringing around what's been going on. I think things will crop up and we'll get into more detail of things in the future, but I guess it's just good to be back, and it's good to prove that I can speak for 17 minutes straight without going silent for too long. My brother's always called me a waffler, so I don't think it's that big of a threat. Anyway, thanks for being here. Thanks for getting through this if you made it this far. More than anything, I did this for me, so if you're doing this for you, then good for you. Have a good one.
For gold, those shoulders. I'll die when I'm ready, cry when I'm steady. I'm never leaving my space. My mind is a J out the friendly. I wind up catching a fade. I wind up catching a blade. My mind isn't made in the shade. I need the sun on my face. I've been numbness and lace. Slightly the love is erased. I need the sun on my face. I wind up catching a blade. I lost all when I escaped. I need the infrared, not some beat like an intellect. Big up the killer, say you won't find hidden death. Introspect dads on the internet if it's what did I